Now it's time to start the first plenary lecture now. Let's welcome our moderators, Professor B. Tao Huang and Dr. N. Go, to introduce our speaker. Professor Huang, please.
Good morning, my dear co-chair, Professor Ko, and my dear colleague. Welcome to join the fourth plenary section of the APPS Joint Congress 2021. It is my great honor to chair this fourth plenary section and introduce the most important plenary speaker, Professor Chen-Pu Ye, to you. Professor Ye is the founder of Taiwan Society of Pediatric Pulmonology and Critical Care Medicine. He was born in Taiwan. Following his medical education in Taipei Medical University, Taiwan, he received a complete training on pediatrics and neonatology in Cook County Children's Hospital and the University of Illinois, United States. After that, he joined the faculty of the same hospital, and then he became the professor of pediatrics at the same hospital and the university in 1991. Professor Ye moved back to Taiwan and took the position as the chairman of the Department of Pediatrics and the vice president of the National Cheng Kung University, Thailand, Taiwan. In 1992, Professor Ye granted a PhD degree from the National Nagasaki Medical University in Japan. In 1998, Professor Ye became the president of the National Cheng Kung University, Thailand. During that period, Professor Ye has been elected as the president of the Taiwan Society of Pediatrics, and he is also organized and set up the Taiwan Society of Neonatologists in 1991, and the Taiwan Society of Pediatric Pulmonology in 1998. In 2003, Professor Ye retired from the government service and was appointed as the president of the China Medical University, Taichung, Taiwan. Until 2006, he retired from the presidency, and currently he is an indoor chair professor of pediatrics at both China Medical University and the Taipei Medical University. Today, we are so glad to have him to give us the first primary speech. So, please, Professor Ye, please start your talk.
Thank you for Dr. Huang's introduction. And the president of this meeting, Dr. Dai, and the president of the society, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to present this study here. You know that bronchopulmonary dysplasia, or BPD, continues to be the most important pulmonary complication in preterm infant following O2 therapy or ventilator therapy. Although the pathogenesis is not completely clear, inflammation may play the central role for the pathogenesis of BPD. Glucocorticoids, particularly systemic dexamethasone therapy, has been shown to be very effective in prevention of BPD. However, because of the long-term side effect, systemic steroid therapy cannot be routinely recommended. Inhaled steroid therapy is technically difficult and the effects are limited. The long-term use of inhaled steroid may associate with infection and with higher mortality. Therefore, it is important to find a therapeutic method that can reduce the systemic side effect of glucocorticoids while at the same time maintain local anti-inflammatory effect of the lung. Thank you. This study is fully supported by KC Pharmaceutical from Italy. Following intratracheal administration of surfactant, there are a couple of factors that may affect the migration of surfactant to the lung periphery. The volume of the surfactant, the injection rate, the gravity and orientation, the ventilatory strategies, the status of alveolar recruitment, and of course, viscosity that may affect the migration of surfactant in the airway. However, the most important factor that affects the peripheral migration or dispersion of surfactant is probably dependent on the surface tension of the surfactant and the surface tension in the fluid in the terminal airway and alveoli. The reason for this migration to the peripheral airway or dispersion to the peripheral airway of surfactant is based on a very physical phenomenon called the Marangoni effect. Marangoni effect implies that in the junction between the low and high surface tension interface, a convection force is created by the surface tension gradient. This convection force will facilitate the movement of the interface to the high surface tension side. The effect can be explained this slide. In the junction between water, which has a higher surface tension, and the soap, which has a lower surface tension, a nice force difference gradient will be created. And this gradient force will go to the higher surface tension side. This convection force can therefore be used as a vehicle for delivery, such as delivery of steroids to the lung periphery. This effect can be demonstrated in animal rats. In the upper panel, we inject 0.25 ml per kilo of isotope labeled F18 budesonide into the trachea. The second panel, we inject the same amount of F18 labeled budesonide supplemented with surfactant, BS. The horizontal line indicates the time after injection, 50 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and 60 minutes. As you can see, injection of budesonide alone, majority of the budesonide will remain in the upper airway. On the other hand, if we inject budesonide supplemented with surfactant, substantial amount of budesonide will identify in the lung periphery. Using a PET scan to measure the radioactivity as shown in the lower panel, a significantly higher radioactivity amount of budesonide was identified throughout the study as compared with when you inject with budesonide alone. Using a different method, if you put a drop of soap over the tail of a paper sailing boat, there's a rubbing movement of the sailing boat to the higher surface tension side. We can measure the speed of movement using a digital camera, which can take 100 photos per second. The result of migration speed using different surfactants are shown in this slide. Apparently, curassow, perhaps due to its higher concentration of surfactant, migrate much faster than Sabanda. Here, the SDS is industry use surfactant. The migrate speed is 8.5 centimeter per second. Butanol, of course, it didn't affect the surfactant itself, therefore the speed is very low. When you use a Sabanda, the speed of migration is 2.755. But when you use curassow, the speed is very far, 11.277. Therefore, when you choose a surfactant to use as a vehicle, it appears that curassow is the best choice. Next question is meant to be asked is that if we ate budesonide on the surfactant, would it affect the biophysical stability or chemical stability? Here we measure the surface tension properly using a surfactometer. And we use different concentration of mixture between surfactant and budesonide to run in the surfactometer. And we also measure the chemical stability of the surfactant and budesonide mixture using the HPLC to identify a new compound generated. This is a surfactometer to run. As you know, as you can see that one side we use a surfactant alone, one is using surfactant plus budesonide with a different concentration. But in this case, actually we use more than 50-to-1 ratio of the concentration. Apparently there's no difference between these two, between the surfactant and surfactant plus budesonide. Now, this slide, we directly measure the mean surface tension, minimum surface tension, maximum surface tension. You look this if we use, this is a Sabanda suspension, 25 milligram per ml, the mean surface tension is 19. And when you use budesonide alone, of course, it's very high. But when you use a mixture between surfactant and budesonide, surfactant we use 12.50 and budesonide 0.25 milligram per ml. Run the average surface tension is 20. It's almost similar to just using the surfactant to run the surface tension. Here's 20, it's 19. When we use HPLC with various concentration of surfactant mixture for 96 hours, apparently there was no new compound detected. Therefore, we come to a conclusion that when you use this is Sabanda and there is a concentration ratio more than 50, it's not going to affect the physical property, biophysical property of surface. In other words, it will not affect the surface tensions, reducing surface tension power. When we use a curassow and budesonide more than 160 ratio to 1, it's not going to affect the biophysical and chemical stability of the mixture. So we have a hypothesis at the beginning of the study earlier, about a couple of years ago. We hypothesized that based on the in vitro and vivo study, we thought that surfactant could be used as an effective vehicle for topical steroid budesonide derivative lung periphery. There were two previous studies conducted in our group, one published in Pediatric 2008, the other one that published in the Blue Journal 2016. In these two studies, the entry criteria are those infant, one is less than 1,500 grams with severe RDS, require intubation and ventilation shortly after birth, usually within 4 hours after birth, and require FiO2 of 0.5. All the infants were randomized into control and intervention group. In the control group, we used Sabanda alone. In the intervention group, we use Sabanda because with a concentration as I mentioned earlier. Well, the results are shown in this slide. With the addition of budesonide to Sabanda, the incidence of BPD or ATLAS was significantly lower in the intervention group, 42%, as compared to the control group, 60%. This p-value less than 0.001. Similarly, when you look at BPD incidence in the intervention group, that's Sabanda and budesonide, 29% have a BPD, as compared to just using Sabanda alone, it's a 50%. This p-value less than 0.001. Now, if you look during this study, as in the dashed line indicate the intervention group, the solid line into the control. In the lower panel is the weaning from excessive oxygen. 20%, 30%, 40%. Now, in the intervention group, the chance of weaning to room air is much, much higher as compared with the control. In the upper panel, the chance to be extubated apparently not much different, but the chance to be weaning to room air is much, much higher in the intervention group by 28 days. Also, we have a chance to look the intratracheal aspirate fluid for some of the inflammatory cytokines IL-1, IL-6, and IL-8. Very interesting is that during the first 12 to 24 hours, most of them they show a lower level of IL-1, IL-6, and IL-8. However, after about 1 week, you see only lower IL-8 in the intervention. In other words, that even just give 1 or 2 doses of budesonide intratracheal to the lung, that suppress the lung inflammation can last for about 1 week. As you can see here, in 70 days after installation of budesonide and surfactant, the IL level is much lower than the control group, suggests that just simply give 1 or 2 doses of budesonide intratracheal with surfactant. The tracheal aspirate suppression of the inflammatory agent can last for about 1 week or even longer. So a summary of this previous study, one is that Sabanda was an effective vehicle for steroid delivery into the lung in very low with severe RDS. Second, 2, intratracheal administration of Sabanda budesonide significantly suppressed lung inflammation and improved the immediate pulmonary status and the subsequent outcome of BPD and BPD or death. There was no apparent immediate adverse effect associated with this study. Pharmacokinetics, we also have a chance to look at the pharmacokinetics study, measure the blood level of budesonide. The pharmacokinetics study demonstrated that this surfactant is a smart biomaterial for the drug delivery. Now, the current double-blind study, as I say, we have a hypothesis that this new therapeutic regimen perhaps can be used, this therapy can be applied to very low person who had RDS but failed to current therapeutic modality of CPAP and high nasal flow shortly after birth. 2. This therapy could be routinely applied to pregnant infants who require intubation and surfactant therapy. Based on this hypothesis, we will conduct a study. The purpose of the study are 1. Early intratracheal administration of Curacao budesonide within 4 to 8 hours after birth would improve the pulmonary status and the subsequent long-term outcome of BPD or BPD of death. 2. What are the associated side effects? Number 3. Is this therapeutic regimen cost-effective and cost-benefit? Now, this time of study, we change the inclusion criteria. We include all infants less than 1,500 grams, and all these infants, or infants who require intubation and resuscitation immediate after birth. And number 3, those very low version who have respiratory distress shortly after birth and fail to nasal CPAP or high nasal flow within 4 to 8 hours after birth. Now, failure to CPAP and high nasal flow was defined as any one of the following. One is if the FiO2 requirement more than 0.3, or if they require CPAP pressure more than 5 cm water, or in spite of CPAP or nasal hair flow, the infant show very severe retraction, or have apnea, or the blood gas PCO2 more than 60 mmHg. The exclusion criteria include if the infant have a severe lethal cardiopulmonary condition at birth or have severe congenital anomaly. Now, in Taiwan, in the last 5 years, we have data showing that the instance based on the instance of BPD or death in the selective group, the control in the study is over 60%. And we expected that following the intratracheal administration of budesonide and Curacao, the instance would decrease to 40%. In other words, 30% improvement. If we allow a type 1 error of 0.05 and type 2 error of 0.10, that's a power, 90% power. We estimate that in each group, about 139 infants required in each group. The safe target number in each group will be about 190. The total sample size to be studied is 300. All the infants met the criteria of entry into study were randomized into intervention group, which give Curacao and budesonide, or control group, Curacao and placebo. The statistician divide this group strictly based on weight, participating hospital, and whether the presence or not of the polioamnitis. We give every 8 to 12 hours for a maximum of 3 doses, unless the infant requires FiO2 less than 0.3 or the infant is extubated. The doses for the first dose, second dose, and third dose, and the volume between the control and budesonide shown in this table. In the first dose, in the control group, we give 200 milligram or 2.5 per kilogram of budesonide plus normal saline 1 ml per kilo per dose. This is the first dose. For the second dose intervention group, in the second dose, in other words, this table, I don't have to go to very detailed, but I think this will tell you. Most of these doses was based on our earlier study in vitro, that is, between Curos and budesonide concentration dose ratio is more than 160/1. Okay, so as you can see here, in the intervention group, we get 200 milligram or 2.5 ml per kilo of dose of Curosub and budesonide 0.25 milligram. And if in the control group, we get 200 milligram per kilo of Curosub plus placebo is not using the normal setting as a placebo. As you know, normal setting is not going to affect the surface tension at all. Okay, we give maximum 3 doses. Now this slide shows you 2 bottles. Budesonide has to protect from the light. Therefore, we use violet color, and these 2 bottles actually imported from outside. And thank you for Jisen Pharmaceutical Company in Taiwan who make all this for us. And statistician put a label the number on it, so nobody can identify which one is which, what's the content inside. Now, I'd like to, in the next 3 slides, I'd like to briefly present the internal result. At this time, we have 200 baby enrolled into the study, but only about 173 discharged from the hospital or die. Therefore, in the control group, we have 76. In the intervention group, 96. Most likely, a lot of babies in the control group still remain in the hospital. Okay. Now, there's no difference between these 2 groups in gender. And this is at the hospital, name of the night hospital. And their birth weight in the control group, 948. In the therapeutic group, intervention group, 937. And gestational age is 27, and this side also 27. There's apparently no difference between these 2 groups at the beginning of the study in terms of gender, in terms of the body weight, gestational age. And here the red color indicates a significant difference between the 2 groups. There's no difference in the mortality. Okay, in the intervention group is 10.31%. In the control group, 11%. But BPD significant difference in the lower instance in the BPD in the intervention group, 41.46%, as compared to in the control group, BPD 63.24. This difference is statistically significant at the p-value of 0.01. Again, when we look BPD or death, in the intervention group, 44.33% as compared to control group, 65.79%. This difference is statistically significant. The p-value less than 0.008. There was no difference between the group from this preliminary report in terms of their PTA, IVH, hyperglycemia, high blood pressure. So I'd like to, although this study is not complete yet, but based on this interim result, I'll give some of the summary here. The instant BPD, 40% versus 66%, and BPD or death, 44.3%, 65%, was significantly lower in the intervention group as compared to the control group. The intervention group also needs less doses of surfactant than the control group. The two groups were comparable in instance of IVH, ROP, PDA, and EC, hypertension, and mortality rate. The duration of the initial hospitalization was much shorter in the intervention group than control group, and the medical costs based on payment from National Health Institute, National Health Insurance Company. In Taiwan, almost 100% of the baby covered by National Health Insurance. So the cost paid for the National Health Insurance for the two groups was different. In the intervention group, I counted US dollar about 39,603, as compared to the control group, 5,589 dollars. So for each patient, we save approximately $15,689. Therefore, this therapy appeared to be very cost-effective and cost-benefit. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
We would like to thank Professor Ye for his very interesting talk about the use of a combination of surfactant with budesonide for the early management of premature babies with respiratory distress syndrome. I'm sure you would have lots of questions for him. Unfortunately, Professor Ye will not be able to take questions because I was just informed that he is due to his wife being unwell, he will not be able to join us this morning. However, if you do have questions, please do write it down and put it in to the email that will be provided for you, and he will be very happy to answer those questions with regards to his talk. And I'm sure that many of you will want to ask him several questions with regards to this therapy, because we do know that bronchopulmonary dysplasia has very long-term serious consequences on many of our premature babies. And if we can reduce the incidence of bronchopulmonary dysplasia, this would be a very, very good thing indeed for many of premature babies who are now surviving because of the advancement in therapy and ventilation. So I'd just like to thank again Professor Ye for his very interesting talk. And we will close this session. Professor Huang, do you have anything further to say?
Thank you for the wonderful comments, and thank you, Professor Ye, for your wonderful studies.
Thank you for our speaker and moderators.